All right, guys. Today's episode, we're joined by Thiago Ávila, a Brazilian humanitarian who was recently involved in flotilla mission to Gaza.
Blockade starts in 2007, 2008, the first mission starts. Every single one of them, they said it was an insurgent mission, it was carrying weapons and not a humanitarian mission. All of them, of course, they were lies. But by the moment that the world realized that they were lies, the news was over.
The crew was ultimately intercepted by Israeli authorities in an event that drew international attention.
Members of the flotilla call the operation active aggression and say it's illegal in international waters.
Even though there's now a ceasefire in place, this conversation takes a look at a moment that unfolded before it. This flotilla mission was part of a broader push to sort of spotlight the humanitarian situation in Gaza, as well as bring in much needed aid to the civilians there. Today we're joined by Thiago Ávila, a Brazilian humanitarian, educator, and climate activist who's become a leading international voice for Palestinian rights. Thiago is best known for his leadership in the 2025 Freedom Flotilla to Gaza, a mission aimed at breaking the blockade and delivering humanitarian aid to civilians caught in the crisis. Earlier this year, he sailed aboard the vessel Madleen, which was intercepted by Israeli forces. And that drew global attention to the humanitarian emergency in Gaza and the dangers faced by those trying to bring relief. From the streets of Brasilia to the shores of the Mediterranean, Thiago has dedicated his life to solidarity, justice, and nonviolent resistance. His work connects struggles across borders, from social movements in Brazil to Palestine, grounded in a belief that justice anywhere depends on justice everywhere. In our conversation today, we'll talk about his experience in the flotilla, what he witnessed firsthand, and what international solidarity looks like in practice. So, Thiago, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to be here, my brother.
So I did want to begin with sort of the origins of your activism. You've been active in so many social and environmental movements. What sort of made you decide to focus so strongly on Gaza, and what first drew you to this cause?
The involvement with Palestine, Jeremy, was when I was 18 years old. I'm 39 years old now, so it was 21 years ago. And I was seeing the full invasion of Gaza and invasion of Lebanon in 2006, a little bit before 2005, the evacuation plan of Ariel Sharon as well. And I thought that was so absurd. I had the same shock that I've been seeing people having right now these last 2 years, but about where is international law? Where is the UN? Where are the big powers? What are the countries that said they were the axis of liberty, human rights, civilization? So my world fell apart like when I was 18 years old. And then I decided to support that. So I joined the Solidarity Movement for Palestine. By then, it was not even close to that capacity to mobilize people. It was actually very hard to talk about Palestine with people because of the lobby, because of all the brainwashing, because of the control of the media. Social media was not there yet with the capacity to break the blockade. So yes, it was 21 years ago, 20 years ago, but everything changed in the last 2 years. So in the last 2 years, the Palestine Solidarity Movement, which was a part not only of mine, but for a lot of people, became the central force, not only in support of Palestine, but also to combine and mobilize people for all the just causes in the world. Palestine become the peak of it. When you mobilize for Palestine, you mobilize for a different society. So that changed everything.
Gotcha. And this has been a long process for you. You mentioned 21 years. So it's been a long time focusing, obviously, not only on Palestine, but obviously conflicts. I did want to talk, and thank you for the context, obviously, and origins behind your solidarity. But I did want to talk about, obviously, the 2025 Freedom Flotilla. So, you were aboard the Madleen when it was intercepted by Israeli forces. Can you sort of walk us through what that experience was like for you and the others on board? And I did want to touch a little bit about Greta. We've heard reports that Greta Thunberg and other passengers were mistreated. The Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs did deny those claims. But from your perspective, what actually happened?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I mean, actually, we had two missions that I was part, not only me and Greta, but also other people were part, Shuaib, Yasmin, and others, that we attempted to break the siege this year, but was actually part of a lot of other attempts that we failed to go there. So we were in 2024 with three big vessels were blocked in Turkey. We also had a smaller boat, the Handala, that broke last year as well, only managed to go this year. So this year we started the missions in May when we tried to sail with one big boat, the Conscience. that was bombed in Malta. And then we only had a small boat of 12 people. And then we decided to go anyway. And then we went, these 12 people, and we got intercepted, like you said, 110 nautical miles from Gaza in international waters. We were kidnapped. They changed our course not to Gaza, but then to Ashdod port in Israel. When we got to Ashdod port, they tried to make us sign a declaration, a confession of a crime we didn't commit, to try to attempt to enter Israel illegally. And of course, we refused. And then after that, they took us to immigration officer. That the immigration officer said, "Look, if you don't sign a document saying that you're voluntarily being deported, you will stay in jail until a court hearing and everything else. If you sign, we'll take you here from the airport." And then we made a decision that 4 people would sign to take the story forward, to tell the world what really happened. Greta was among these people back in June, and the other people stayed in jail. I actually was not only brought to jail in Givon prison in June, but also I was taken to solitary confinement for 2 days there. I was doing a hunger and thirst strike as well. Or very tough days, but nothing compared to what Palestinians go through. But then after that, missions kept on going. We had the Handala mission as well with 21 people. And then we had the biggest mission ever attempted, which was the Global Sumut Flotilla. We understood, Jeremy, that we could not do a meaningful impact for Palestine breaking the siege if we were going just with one, with two, with three boats. So we joined forces with other coalitions who were trying to break the siege by other means, like the Global March to Gaza that was trying to fly to Cairo and march from Rafah, from Al Arish to Rafah. And we also joined forces with the Sumut convoy, who was marching from Tunisia, from the Maghreb, the north of Africa, to Gaza, but they were blocked as well between Libya and Egypt. So we joined forces, a coalition of coalitions, and then everything changed. Then we had thousands of people mobilized, and we had dozens of boats, and we managed to get very close to Gaza with 42 boats that unfortunately got intercepted, but actually shook up the whole world because it mobilized dock workers, mobilized general strikes, mobilized and pressure governments and nation states to push for more restrictive measures, to push for more solidarity for Palestine. So yes, this mission, the impact was huge in our opinion, but still our task is incomplete. Gaza is still under siege. Gaza is in a fake situation of peace, of ceasefire, because Israel has already killed 242 people. Israel is still occupying 58% of Gaza. They're still not allowing the aid to flow regularly in a dignified amount, not even what was before 2023. So there's still a lot of work for us to do, and that's why we need to continue going. But I understand you want to talk about what happened after we got intercepted in this last mission, right?
Yeah, and what happened to Greta?
Yes. So when we went on this last mission, we were like always suffering a lot from their attempt to do smear campaigns against us, to try to lie to people and confuse people. So they were saying that we were Hamas flotilla, that we were people, violent people, that we were bringing weapons, and that a lot of things. And of course, they said that all the other 37 attempts to break the siege, 37 other boats that made this journey. They said that, but in the end, they had to admit that we were only carrying humanitarian aid and everything else. But after what happened, so before they always try to push for this narrative, and we were defending ourselves and showing what we were really there for, and explaining that we were a nonviolent solidarity, a humanitarian mission to break the siege and open a humanitarian corridor. And in the end, I believe we managed to defeat that. But then they changed into a narrative that was saying that for the people who went before already, they would push for harsher treatment, and not only to put the people in prison, but also to consider from terrorist charges, especially on Greta and me and the others. And so we decided to go anyway, Jeremy, because we cannot fall for their threats. All oppressive regime will threaten people, especially when they are in a bad position. And we have to understand that the Zionist regime, they are in a very bad position. Like Trump was right when he said that they cannot fight the whole world alone, because now the whole world is against the genocide in Palestine. The whole world is against bombing hospitals, schools, shelters, about starving children to death. They lost that. They lost the PR battle forever. And people who understood now what is Zionism, what is imperialism, they will never believe this again. So what they had left? They had left, since they could not manufacture consent anymore, they had the power to bring coercion, to intimidate people. So they attacked our boats during the way. They made 14 attacks in a single night with drone strikes. But also when we got in prison, when they intercepted our boats, and once again changed our course from Gaza in international waters to Ashdod port in Israel. When we arrived at port, Ben Gvir was there, the Ministry of Interior, the war criminal that has been giving rifles to settlers to assassinate Palestinians in the West Bank, that has been pushing for the death penalty of Palestinian prisoners, that has been pushing for not allowing a single truck of aid to enter Gaza because he is pushing for the full ethnic cleansing. So this guy was there to greet us, and then with his police. So they were extremely violent. They were assaulting people, not only me, Greta, but also other people, especially from global South countries, the Tunisians, the Turks, and other people. But with Greta, they were trying to do a PR stunt with her. So they put her to hold an Israeli flag. They put her hair on the ground. They were filming her. Whenever her head or any part of her body would touch the Israeli flag, they would kick her. They would call her names. They would strip search her. Not only her, but a lot of people, me myself included. They stole all of people's stuff, and they brought back Greta's bag. It was full of bad words and a lot of offenses to her, and they did that a lot of bad things with a lot of people. They brought people to forced interrogation. They brought tactical teams with rifles, with shotguns, with dogs in the middle of the night in jail. They refused people to get their medicine. Like we had to do a full strike, a rebellion in prison, to for them to give insulin for people who were 3 days without insulin, diabetic patients. So it was a very tough time. They also denied medical attention for people who were in crisis. They also brought me and did a lot of threats to me as one of the organizers of the mission. They threatened my baby. They threatened so many things. They brought me to walk in the desert. They brought me and other people to trucks, to police prison trucks, and they put on the heater on the highest for people to feel bad. And so they would do a lot of bad things. They would prevent people from sleeping, going like every 1.5 hours into all the cells and waking people up. So they were actually very, very bad. But the worst thing to think about that, Jeremy, is that all these things they did, which was mistreatment, is nothing compared to what they do to Palestinians. The same prison we were brought in the desert, the Kitziot prison in the Negev. This prison is a torture camp for Palestinians. It's where they kill so many of them, where they rape so many of them, where they permanently damage them so much, where they remove their eyeballs, where they commit so many violations. So of course, we need to talk about any mistreatment that anybody suffers, but first of all, we need to talk about Palestinians because there are over 10,000 Palestinians in Israeli dungeons, and 400 of them are children. Children that have not even been tried because they have this administrative detention rule that comes from the British mandate from almost 100 years ago. And that is so absurd that they still use that for Palestinians, judging them on military courts. Children that are not even 14 years old are being put in prison like that. So we need to talk about the people who are suffering the worst violations right now. And Greta was very strong all the time. Every mission, Greta is by far one of the most disciplined, one of the bravest people, one of the strongest people in all the missions that we have. I know the media says a lot of things, but all of us who know her in intimacy, we know what a great activist she is. And she behaved very good. And actually, when she went home, she was actually angry about the coverage because she was saying that's not about me, it's about the Palestinians, about Gaza. And she's been like that all along. And she's a very principled person. So it's very nice to be around her. And I'm sorry that she's been through all of that. But like her, like every Palestinian, we all keep on going.
And I did want to say, just to corroborate that, Greta did dominate the airwaves and news headlines in here in the U.S. So I did see a lot about that and sort of took away from the coverage. And obviously, there's a lot to unpack there. And obviously, it took a lot of courage to do what you did. But I did sort of want to talk about your choice of strategy. So, according to what I read, you had options to deliver the aid through other channels, but you did choose this route, obviously knowing the risks. Some people have said that the flotilla was more symbolic or performative rather than practical. How do you sort of respond to that criticism? And how do you respond to people who say that, activism like a flotilla can't really change the situation on the ground?
That's a very good topic, Jeremy. First bring, because those three things. First, why not give the aid anywhere else, or out of the many offers we had? Why go there? And then, is the flotilla symbolic thing? And then, can we promote change through actions like this? First, the Zionist regime, every mission we did, when we were getting close to Gaza, they would call us over the radio and threaten us. After we didn't fall for their threat, they would soften their speech and they would offer us to get the aid and they would deliver themselves. But who would believe that if they are the ones starving people to death? If they are the ones refusing the aid? So, first of all, on a logical sense, why would we give the aid for those who are starving people deliberately to death? That doesn't really make sense. And the second thing is that according to international law, the Palestinian territory in Gaza is Palestinian territory. It's not Israeli territory. Their occupation is illegal according to the International Court of Justice, according to the UN Charter, according to most of the resolutions that have been dealing with Palestine and Israel throughout the years. So they really should not be trying to rule that land. They should not be trying to control their borders. So in our idea, it would be against our principles to deliver aid intermediated by the occupying force. We cannot allow that. We need the Palestinian people to control their own sea waters, to be able to fish, to be able to fend for themselves. Palestinians would not need aid at first to begin with if they were not under siege. That is a fertile land. That is a beautiful place. It was always one of the richest places on earth, of amazing people, of great civilizations. So it's important that we consider this, that we do not want to give the aid for people who has been starving children to death, and we do not want to give to an occupying force our aid intermediated by them. We want to give straight to the people who are, by international law, the rightful people to receive that aid. Second thing, why did the flotilla happen like it was, and the effect of it? So there are many people that question the way that we do our mission. Regarding the costs, the flotilla is a mission that we received from over 80,000 people around the world donating small amounts. And in the end, we managed to buy all these 42 boats and we managed to mobilize so much people. But it's still a mission that is less expensive than a humanitarian mission that goes and takes a few hundred trucks through Rafah border, through the Sinai Desert in Egypt, for example. And this aid has been rotting in the desert for so many years. I've been to Ismailia. I tried to get to Rafah border. I've seen the lines and lines of trucks rotting in the desert, Jeremy. One of the saddest things I've ever seen in my life. And the flotilla mission is much cheaper than any of this, but still mobilize a lot of energy and a lot of people, because it's not about its immediate effect on the aid that we can carry. We are not cargo boats, so we can carry a limited amount of aid. But this aid getting to Gaza saves lives already, because we carry food, we carry medicine, we carry crutches, we carry water filters, we carry a lot of useful stuff. But not only that, because of course we'll be limited. It's a drop in the ocean for the necessities of Gaza. But the important factor of opening a humanitarian corridor, that then the big vessels, the cargo ships, the governments and the international organizations, then they can do their work, because they are the ones specializing in bringing aid to places in situations of humanitarian crisis. So the reason why they don't do that in Palestine, despite the fact that they signed international agreements that would obligate them to do it, is that they say that the way is shut. So we go there to open the way. Once the way is open, these governments have no more excuse but to do that. So our part to open the way is more important than the aid we carry immediately. That is why we need to continue going. And considering the action like this can have an effect or cannot have an effect, well, I believe it's something useful for us to consider that just in this last mission, the day that we were being intercepted, all the Israeli Navy went to intercept us and attack us, to a level that the Palestinian people could finally fish for many, many months. And they fishing, they actually gathered more food than they would have gotten on our boats. So it was actually something beautiful to see that they finally managed to do that. But not only that, Jeremy, the pressure that it made. about that they were intercepted. For example, 1 million people went to the streets in Rome, and hundreds of thousands of people went to the street in Madrid. The general strike in Italy mobilized for 1 million people. So millions and millions of people throughout the world went to the streets when that happened. And billions of people, I'm not afraid to say, billions of people talked about Palestine in these critical days. They were discussing the blockade. Why is Gaza under siege for 18 years? They were discussing why Palestinians need aid from afar. Why did this need to go by the sea? What's happening with their borders? So everybody was discussing that. This was the main topic in so many countries. So of course it is worth it, because these young people that have discovered through this action that Palestine has been living 8 decades of genocide and ethnic cleansing, that structured themselves into an apartheid colonial state, and which is led not by their myths of a religious war or people that has always believing in war that has no solution. It's not they have been led by a racist and supremacist ideology called Zionism. The young people that has learned that, they will never forget that, and they will never believe their lies again. So it makes a huge difference. Whenever someone says it's something symbolic, I always consider, does this action make the indigenous, the originary people of that land, in a stronger position than their occupying force? Yes, it does. So it was not symbolic. It helped them to achieve their victory. It's not about us. It's always about the Palestinian people and their struggle, their long march to freedom. I believe, Jeremy, that all the people have the right to live in peace, and the Palestinian as well. So I believe that we were in support for that. That's why I know that we need to keep on going.
So that was my next question, and thank you for the thoughtful thoughts on that. But that was my next question, just talking about the impact. So based on what you said, looking back, it does seem that even though you did get intercepted, the aid didn't get through, that you do feel like the flotilla did achieve what it set out to do, and the mission did succeed in raising awareness and sort of shifting the conversation and focus on Gaza and Palestine.
You know that I always say that our task is incomplete because there's still people starving in Gaza. Gaza is still under siege. So there were some important victories on this process, but it was a partial victory. What we need is to make sure that what I always think, Jeremy, I'm a father of almost 2 old baby daughter. And when I see her, I always think that no children would need to learn what's the sound of an F-35 fighter jet that would throw a 2,000-pound bomb over their heads. That no children would need to learn what is the difference between a surveillance drone that will not kill you instantly or a quadcopter drone that will kill you instantly if you cross their path. No children needed to understand the effects of starvation in their organism, their body. So whenever I look at a situation like that, I understand that we have a lot to move to continue mobilizing, but the flotilla had important partial victories. I never say it's a total victory because the situation, the violation is still there. And that's why we need to continue going. But it shows us an effect just to see that Trump, the leader of the most dangerous, most destructive imperial force and military force in the planet in history, has had to admit that his plan of a Riviera, of this real estate project, of displacing Palestinians, first to Egypt or Jordania, and then to Eritrea, to South Sudan, to Somaliland, or anywhere that he tried his absurd plan, he failed. And then he had to push Netanyahu to accept his failure as well and accept that they would not do the complete ethnic cleansing of Palestine. So imagine these people, this small area of 365 square kilometers, over a bit over 2 million people, they defeated the most horrific industrial military complex ever made, and they refused to be exterminated. So this is a huge victory, and that's why I believe that it was important. It's shown that people has the power and that we have the capacity to speak truth to power and to bring them defeats and bring victory to the people, but we still need to keep on going. It's not done yet.
So it sounds like the work is going to continue. As we're in the midst of a ceasefire and some relative peace compared to the last 2 years, I did want to ask, moving forward, from your perspective, and this is obviously hopefully the situation gets resolved soon, there'll be, lasting peace, but what would a just and lasting solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict look like in your eyes?
Yes. I've been accompanying this for 21 years. I've been asking myself the same question. And when I was in Palestine, the first thing that I wanted to ask was to people, how do we solve this? And I would ask people, is it a one-state solution? Is it a two-state solution? And when I got there, it was actually quite funny because the first people I talked about that, he said to me, the first guy, his name is Baha, he said, Thiago, I don't want no state at all. I'm an anarchist. so, so, so the Palestinian people, they are way more diverse than people think. They are way more complex culturally and religiously. People try to think in a very orientalist way that they are all the same, manipulated without any agency, but they're actually amazing, educated people with elaborate ideas of society and how to live in a beautiful society. What I believe throughout these years is that the best solution and the most likely solution for it to be really solved would be a solution like the apartheid in South Africa, that once dismantled the apartheid regime and people has the same rights without mattering what is your religion, what's your ethnic group, what's your political stance, when people have the same rights, we are capable of building true peace. But in a colonial regime where people were treated differently, where, for example, an Israeli has the age that they can go get arrested as is 18 years, and a Palestinian is 14 years, but actually is judged by military courts and not civilian courts like Israelis, where Palestinians have no right to move from Gaza, from the occupied West Bank, from East Jerusalem. When there's this apartheid system, peace cannot prevail. So, what I believe the best solution, and most likely the only solution, is to dismantle this colonial apartheid system, bring equal rights for every citizen living there without mattering what's their background and context, and then letting people decide, like in every other country. You live in a country where a person, independently their religion, they can vote, they can express their ideas, they can move anywhere. I live in Brazil as well, but we don't ask what's the religion of people for them to be part of our society. But in Israel, unfortunately, there is a law. The National Basic Law, approved in 2018, says Israel is a nation state for the Jewish people. There are so many racist laws in Israel that discriminates Palestinians and that creates a theocracy state based on Jewish religion. So my belief is that, like many Palestinians, is that the only way to do that is a single state that could be called Palestine or whatever name it has, but where people has equal rights.
So yeah, I appreciate your thoughts on that. I don't know how feasible that is at this current juncture, but definitely whatever solution. Obviously, looking for peace. While I did have you on the line, I did want to ask you because I do respect you as a humanitarian. I do want to shift the conversation away from Gaza before bringing it back for our closing. But I did want to mention this. I know you did attend Hassan Nasrallah's funeral. That was considered, controversial for many. How do you think people should sort of understand your presence there, especially considering Hezbollah's involvement in actions that did harm civilians in Syria during the civil war?
Jeremy, I'm a communicator. In Brazil, I'm an environmentalist and a communicator. That's my work. And I'll always go anywhere where I see the value of the news and I see there is something important. So I've been to the United States as well, which in my opinion is the most horrific and terrorist country in the entire world
My
that
home
killed a
country.
million people in Iraq. Yes. So I've been to the United Kingdom as well. So if I've been there, how come I would not go to global south countries that suffer from colonization, that suffer from violations? And when I received the invitation to go to Hassan Nasrallah's funeral, it was with 1,500 other journalists from all around the world, from the US, from everywhere else. And there was something about this funeral that they said there will be over 1 million people and that Israel was threatening to bomb this funeral. So it was something that I felt was something super interesting to see. I've always been very in solidarity with the Lebanese people that have been under attack by Israel as well, that have suffered many attempted invasion, that have been assassinated, that have been bombed, that have lost their land in so many contexts. And so I went there and I actually was amazed by the Lebanese people, such a brave people, such an inspirational people. I have many differences with all the insurgent organizations that are in that area. That's not how I believe. I'm a Marxist, so I do not agree with mixing religion and the state for one first topic. So that's not how I believe the world should be led. But I always believe that people have the right to try to defeat the structure of colonization. Actually, it's not only me, but the United Nations Charter in Chapter 51 says that colonization itself is a crime, not trying to resist against it. And it says that the people have the right to resist by any means necessary, even by armed struggle. But once also something that I realized, Jeremy, is that a lot of people that support these insurgent organizations, not only Hezbollah, but Hamas and others. Actually, in Palestine, there are many organizations, communist organizations like the Popular Front, like many others. But especially when we talk about Hamas and Hezbollah, many of the people of these two countries They support these organizations not because they agree with everything they think or about how to organize a state or a society, but because they believe they are the only ones capable of defending them from Israel. So this is something that I've seen a lot in Lebanon as well. So I was actually glad to be there. I'll go again. I really don't care. I'm a communicator. I'll go wherever the news makes value to educate people and to bring these debates.
Yeah, and that's an interesting perspective. Um, I did want to close here with a message from you. Just with a closing takeaway, what message did you want the world to really take from, your flotilla mission? What message would you want listeners from all backgrounds to take away from your experiences and work? And if you could speak directly to children affected by this conflict, on both sides, what would you want them to know?
I believe the main message that we were trying to pull up with the flotilla is that the greatest challenge and the greatest battle of our generation has come. That we see conflictive societal projects. We see a project that is based on exploitation, oppression, destruction of nature. And we see a project that is based in solidarity, in love, in people living well within their culture where they are originary from. And we need to understand that this project, this imperialist project, that brings people only to compete between one another, to try to accumulate more material good, to destroy nature and treat people badly, does not bring abundance and happiness to anybody. So we're trying to show that we can build a better society through other values, but also through very dedicated and enthusiastic direct action. The system will not crumble or collapse by itself, or if it does, it will take the whole world with it. So we need to make sure that we change society, that we are the ones who bury this system and build a new system instead of it. So what we were doing is showing that people should not be starved to death. Whenever there's people being starved to death, we should interfere. We should mobilize ourselves. We should not fear the consequences, because if we fear oppressive regimes like that, we'll never transform society. And when we do that with courage, with good ideals, communicating our message freely and without fear, people connect with it and people mobilize as well. So we've just seen that yes, it's possible to promote change. It's possible to take a blow into this system that feels invincible sometimes. They're not invincible. All they have is their violence, their hate, their weapons, and their bombs. We have all the rest. We are the 99% of the people who are not benefit from the system and who only wants to live happily. So what we try to say to people is let's go, let's mobilize. There's not anything, not nothing is more important than doing this right now. If you have a children, if you don't have children, there's nothing more important for the future than to change the structures of the society that enables genocide in Palestine, in Sudan, in Congo, that enables ecocide in the Amazon, in all the other biomes in the world. The greatest battle of our generation has come, and we need people to mobilize for it and to be victorious in the name of all the humans, or the non-human animals, and all the living beings on this planet.
Well, thank you, Tiago, for of course sharing your perspective and experiences from the flotilla, and of course your work advocating for humanitarian rights all across the world. And I think no matter where you stand politically, conversations like this really remind us, the human side of conflict, the lives affected, specifically children. The hopes for peace, and really the need for empathy across divides. And Tiago, I think your work really highlights one dimension of a deeply complex issue, and just hearing voices like this helps broaden our understanding of what people on all sides are experiencing. So, to our listeners, thank you for tuning in and for being part of a space where you could, explore these topics with, openness, curiosity, and respect as well. So, Tiago, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Appreciate it.